Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of the War of 1812. What we're going to see today is the main chunk of the war, but we're not going to get quite to the end of it. We're going to review really quickly why the United States decides to start the war. We're going to look at the opening action of the war and see how America kind of messes it all up. And then we're going to look at the British counterattack where they almost manage to conquer parts of the United States and bring it back to Great Britain. Here are your goals. Once again, I suggest that you write these questions down and try to answer them as you watch the video. Alright, so let's start with a quick review. First of all, the United States declares war on Great Britain in 1812 for 3 reasons. 1, they don't like that British people in Canada are arming unfriendly Native Americans who go down and attack the United States. 2, the British have been bullying American ships at sea and blocking U.S. trade. This is kind of a disgrace to the United States internationally and also hurts the American economy because they can't trade with other nations. And 3, Americans hope to get more land. That is, if they win the war, they hope they can conquer new territories, especially Florida in the south and parts of Canada in the north. The people who cause America to go to war are people called war hawks. These are leaders from western states like Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. The reason these people are particularly eager for war is that they're the ones that are hurt the most by the hostile Indians that Britain was helping. So they have the most to gain, and they're the ones who are being hurt the most by the British, so they're the ones that want to fight. They succeed and they get James Madison to ask for a declaration of war in 1812, and the war begins. So from the American perspective, declaring war on Great Britain was a pretty bad idea. The reason for this is that Britain at this time was a global superpower. It had a huge, well-trained professional army with 6,000 people in Canada and an additional 240,000 people in Europe. That is a huge army. Britain also had the world's most powerful navy, with more than 1,000 ships and 120,000 sailors. The United States, on the other hand, was really weak. It had a small, disorganized army of only 7,000 men total. And it had an even tinier navy with only 12 ships total. And so this is an incredibly mismatched war, and Britain should have been able to win no problem. The fact that America was willing to risk this war basically shows that America is willing to make some pretty irrational decisions at times. So basically, what was the U.S. thinking? How could they possibly have thought that they could win this war against the superpower Great Britain? All of the British people in Canada, they could end the war before the British people could send any additional reinforcements. So that was the idea anyway. But it doesn't really work out as the Americans planned. The first part of the war does not go well at all. America tries to invade Canada, but they fail. They figure that if they can invade Canada and take over this British territory, then the British won't be able to send any backup. But this doesn't work because poorly trained American troops tend to run away, even in battles that they could have won. So even though America is in a position to take Canada, their troops can't be relied upon. Also, weak leaders fail to lead troops into battle. So at crucial moments, American generals decide not to fight, and they fall back from Canada. So really, America doesn't do a very good job in this invasion. It's a pretty weak show of force. Also, Americans out west lose important battles to Native Americans. The well-armed Native Americans are able to beat American armies in the west. So really, things are not going very well for the United States, and things are about to get even worse. In 1814, two years after the war starts, America really hasn't managed to do much damage to Great Britain, and by then the British have won the war with France, and they can now attack America with all of their strength. This is pretty bad news. The first thing that happens is the British use their more than 1,000 ships to set up a blockade around the United States. What this means is that British ships block all American trade. And the idea here is that by blocking all American trade, it will ruin the American economy and make America surrender. On top of this, the British send armies to invade America at 3 places. They send one at New York, where they hope to cut off the whole northeastern part of the states and maybe capture them and return them to the British Empire. 2, they invade at New Orleans in order to block all traffic on the Mississippi River, which, remember, is crucial. It's like the old highway of the center of the United States. And finally, at Washington, D.C., the British invade to try and destroy the nation's capital. The first one of these plans to go into effect was attacking Washington. And the British are able to capture Washington, D.C., and as you can see in the picture there, they actually burned down the White House in 1814. So things look pretty bad for the USA, but the war is not over yet. And we're going to talk next time about how the war ends and how the US kind of comes back from the brink of defeat to save itself. But in the meantime, we need to look at one more thing. New England, the northern states of Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island want out of the war. Many people in New England never wanted to fight Britain in the first place, and when it seems like the US is going to lose, they want out. The Federalist Party is located mostly in New England and had always supported Britain and believed that the war would hurt the United States. Because of this, and because they believed nobody was listening to them, some Federalists wanted to leave the United States and form their own smaller country, which would ally with Great Britain. Other Federalists don't want to leave, but they did get together to protest the war at a thing called the Hartford Convention. So basically all the Federalists are against the war and want to end the war as quickly as possible. Some Federalists want to go even further and leave the United States and become their own country. Later, when the war ends, the other party, the Democratic Republicans, accuse the Federalists of being unpatriotic. And this leads to the collapse of the Federalist Party. This is really important and will be a major theme after the war is over. So here are your goals again. I hope that I have answered all of these questions clearly for you. If you can't answer any of them yet, I would suggest you go back to the relevant slide and check them out once again. All right, guys, that's all. See you tomorrow.